framework for stablecoins. I know there are a lot of earlier questions on CFPB. I think the record is pretty darn good. It's returned $20 billion to consumers. Matter of fact, last time we had the previous chair here, Chair Rohit, Ms. Chopra, we were talking about $55 million to Virginians. I do have to mention this more for my colleagues. Tim Kaine and I did a teletown hall last night. Lots of things happening in Virginia. Normally, we would get maybe 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 folks on a teletown hall. We had 60,000 last night. I have not seen anything like that in my time up on here on the Hill, and a huge amount of concern about what the Doge boys are doing, whether our information is safe, whether privacy is protected. I had one lady say, in light of what was happening at CFPB, and while there's not a direct connection, she's saying, is her deposits at her bank safe? We tried to give her a assurance, but I said, you know what, ma'am, I'm going to be talking to the chairman of the Federal Reserve tomorrow. And with this diminution or shuttering, at least at the time being, of the CFPB, can I tell, I believe her name was Mary, can I tell Mary from Virginia that her bank account is safe?
I think bank accounts overall across the economy are safe, yes. We've still got deposit insurance at the FDIC, and the banking system is well capitalized and safe.
Well, again, I think the concern was being raised was that the diminution of consumer protections lent her concerns about whether that dollar being safe. Last thing I want to recognize is that there's been additional bonding that we're going to have to do, particularly if with so many of these unpaid tax cuts. Matter of fact, one of the things that was really striking to me was that yesterday the president mentioned how he was, quote, examining not be as high as possible. We all understand the full faith and credit of the United States is based upon a reputation. If this president were to suddenly say, I'm wiping off X amount of debt because I don't believe we owe it, what kind of effect would that have on both stability of the dollar and the overstability of our economy? So you think it would be, from a Fed standpoint, the President of the United States starts to say we're not going to pay our Treasury debt. You're going to have no view at all?
I'm not going to comment on things that the president says.
I would like to see us at some point get a stronger currencies willy-nilly. His ability to potentially curtail payment of debt, I think, would have devastating consequences on our economy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Britt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversation both in and out of this hearing room today. Conversations about a co-president referencing Elon Musk, referencing the work that he said, we're going to look for wasteful spending across our government. We're $36 trillion in debt, y'all. That's not only fiscally irresponsible, it is actually morally irresponsible. And the difference in this administration and the last administration is that President Trump is actually the final arbiter. And it's interesting that none of you had anything to say over the last 4 years. Then let's go back and say co-President Jake Sullivan, co-President Ron Klain, co-President Jill Biden. I mean, it seems that some of the biggest decisions were made during what's been laid out and what's actually occurring. Chair Powell, I want to discuss some monetary policy issues, but I first want to highlight a few supervisory items. We unfortunately started 2023 with several bits slow to ask. The question has been asked earlier about who was fired, who was not. I think that there's some real merit.
Un tiro de media distancia. Lo que no puede paciencia, porque esto es muy largo. Todo el partido de vuelta.
Opa, para cambiar la placa, porque se puede venir un de Pep Guardiola con eso. Viene Phil.
that, we had community, or as we discussed last week, the reputational risk and political agendas. None of this is acceptable, and we've got to take a look at how to promote greater accountability and transparency into the Fed's supervisory function. Shifting gears, as of January 30th, the Federal Reserve had a $1 billion. In fact, I looked back and the Fed has posted losses since September of 2022. Meanwhile, we've seen transfers to the CFPB. So just to clarify, Chair Powell, these money transfers are requested and directly deposited by the Fed. Is that how that works?
We send that money, yes.
So, in fact, but Dodd request.
That is correct.
And so it gives full discretion.
That is correct.
And so it gives full discretion to the CFPB director to be funding to the CFPB director to be funding request been denied by the Fed.
We don't have the authority to deny
To
it.
applaud the current administration and acting director vote for current administration and acting director vote for inserting some accountability received from September 2022 up to the last September 2022 up to the last receipt on January 2nd, 20 through receipt on January 2nd, 20 through the combined earnings of the Federal Reserve System. However, as I'm negative to system. However, as I'm negative 200 billion. So instead of 200 billion. So instead of the recent audit statement serve bank assessment, and neither permit the CFPB to fact finding.
We looked at that question very carefully, and it's very clear on the
Chairman, I would point out that candidate Trump did not run trail about Project 2025. He said, I don't know anything about that. Who are those people? Head of the Office of Management and Budget, which we know is the command and control center. 5, that candidate Trump said he knew nothing about you to get paid, but the Trump administration tells them to stop doing their work. No, it wouldn't. And yet that's what it seems to me that the Trump administration and Elon Musk are focused. And when you look at the price of eggs these days, I noticed that following suit. You've seen that, right, Mr. Chairman?
yes.
Yeah. And at the same cost of egg increases. So what we're really facing here is an administration comes to prices, Mr. Chairman. The president's also talking about significant increase in their own account.
Confidence was weak in policy, and those will all go into a mix, and we'll try to make sense of it and do what's right.
In prices. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Senator Lummis.
Thank you, Mr. They will be focused on the bank supervision function of the Fed. Governor of the Fed at the time, William McChesney Martin, said that the Federal Reserve, yelling that, quote, Congress is our boss. Congress is to thumb its nose at Congress. Self, the chairman, the ranking member, Senator Tillis. In my experience, the Fed is a black hole. It consumes in 2 occasions with respect to Wyoming and digital assets. Has accused your staff of lying to him while providing me a statement by the Fed's general who said, quote, the Fed generally resists legislative his nose at Congress, the very people that you and I the people depend on. To hurt the very people on Valley Bank. And I contend with the Fed with respect to digital asset policy. But somehow your staff have not gotten that message. To comply fully with all document demands issued by this, will you instruct your staff to be complete in their
Responsive to your requests. Sometimes they're beyond our capacity to committee requests.
And I'll look forward to engaging with you when you, the oversight that we have over the Fed. Do you or other misconduct?
I can't make cases of what appears to be debanking, and we're determined to, so I thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time's up.
Chair Powell, for being with us today. I appreciate your presence here. I know, Mr. Chair, that you care a lot about homeownership and making homeownership accessible. Rising cost of homeownership is a big challenge for our constituents, for Americans struggling to manage a nearly 40% increase in home insurance. Told this committee in the past that rising cost of rising insurance rates is being caused by extreme weather events. We've seen massive a fact. So, you know, we've got banks that of course require, understandably, that's of the country just literally not available. And what